This beautiful little girl, kissed by the sun, was the darling of her entire family. For her father, she became his anchor and his only possible legacy. Few people in their early 20s think about what will remain after them. But Brandon thought about it constantly after the tragic day that took away his ability to walk. He dreamed of how his baby girl would grow up happy and beautiful, how she'd go to school and one day become the most beautiful bride. He had no idea that a predator had already entered his child's life, testing the boundaries of what he could get away with. This little girl, who was only 22 months old, suffered unimaginable violence. Her aggressor used her fragile body in unspeakable ways. Slipping deeper into a world of forbidden substances, he invented new and cruel games. Tragically, no one came to rescue this little angel, and all too soon, her tiny body could no longer withstand the abuse. Friends, take a second to like, subscribe, and leave a comment with your city and time. Your participation will help this important information reach those who need it most. Zamora Lee Foe was born into a family where she was wanted and loved. Months before her birth, young Brandon and Zayla joyfully popped a black balloon, discovering they were having a baby girl.
Alright, I'm recording.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
That was loud as fuck! you have glitter all over you.
Oh my god.
It's a girl!
I was with it, but that shit was wrong.
On November 15, 2022 in Jacksonville, Florida, Zamora was born. A healthy baby girl weighing 8 pounds and standing 20.5 inches tall. From her earliest days, everyone noticed the baby's extraordinary beauty with her remarkably bright blue eyes that curiously explored her new world. The soft fuzz on her head promised to become beautiful curls. Brandon was enchanted by his daughter from the first glance. He tenderly held her in his arms, often falling asleep with the baby on his chest, guarding her peaceful slumber. He captured his love for his daughter in a tattoo of her name on his neck, a sign of eternal devotion to his child. On December 15, 2022, when Zamora was just 1 month old, her christening took place. The little girl in an exquisite white lace dress looked like a true angel. Zamora's mother, Zayla Goodwin, though very young at just 18 years old, approached motherhood with remarkable love. She enjoyed feeding her baby, holding her close to her chest and softly singing lullabies. In January 20th, 2023, when Zamora was only 2 months old, a tragedy struck that forever changed her family's life. Brandon Foe was involved in a terrible car accident, suffering a serious spinal injury. The young father was partially paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair. Doctors told him he would probably never be able to have more children. After this news, little Zamora became for Brandon not just a daughter, but his little miracle, the only child he would ever have. She became the true meaning of his life, a source of strength and determination to keep fighting despite his physical limitations. Zayla suddenly found herself caring not only for a small child, but also for a partially paralyzed partner. The weight of this double responsibility fell on the shoulders of the young mother, who wasn't even 20 years old yet. During this difficult period, Zamora's paternal grandmother, Patricia Foe, became an invaluable support for the family. She would take Zamora when Zayla was working or busy caring for Brandon. Patricia proudly showed photos of her granddaughter to all her acquaintances, saying that the family had never had such a beautiful child before. Despite the family's challenges, Zamora grew as a happy, healthy child. By 4 months, the soft fuzz on her head had begun to transform into golden curls. Her smile grew wider, and her infectious laugh brought smiles to everyone around her. At 5 months, Zamora learned to roll over, and by 6 months she was already sitting confidently with support. Her cheerful babbling filled the house with joy, and her little hands reached for her favorite toys. Especially she became attached to a plush giraffe, which she did not let out of her hands even in her sleep. By 8 months, the personality of little Zamora began to manifest itself brightly. She became more social and enjoyed spending time with the other children in her extended family. During feeding, she insisted on holding the spoon herself, although most of the food, of course, ended up on the table and on her. Zamora loved swimming in the small pool behind the house. The little girl would burst into laughter, splashing and making waves with her tiny hands, her joyful squeals echoing down the street. By her first birthday in November 20th, 23, Zamora was taking her first uncertain steps, holding on to adults' hands and saying simple words. She happily tried her first cake, smearing frosting all over her happy little face. During this same period, the relationship between Brandon and Zayla became strained. Constant stress and financial difficulties led the young parents to decide to separate. Despite the breakup, they agreed that Zamora would regularly see her father and his family. By the end of 2023, the lives of Zamora and her mother began to change dramatically. Zayla Goodwin, facing the challenges of single motherhood, met 22-year-old Nathaniel Davis. The handsome and communicative young man quickly gained the girl's trust, showing extraordinary care for both her and little Zamora. Little Zamora quickly got used to the new man in their home. She brought him her toys, laughed at his jokes, and climbed on his lap to beg for a smartphone with cartoons. Nathaniel often said he liked how lively and clever she was. However, behind Nathaniel's caring facade lay a disturbing truth that Zayla failed to check. Just a few months before they met, on January 29, 2023, Davis had been arrested on domestic violence charges against another 20-year-old woman. He pleaded not guilty and received 12 months probation, a punishment that could have been much more severe had the court been stricter. This court decision would ultimately cost little Zamora her life. With Nathaniel's arrival, the family's lifestyle began to subtly change. At first, it was minor details, a beer bottle left on the table, late-night absences, strange phone calls. Gradually, their way of life became increasingly chaotic. Davis introduced Zayla to the world of forbidden substances, offering her something just to relax after a hard day. The young woman, exhausted by constant care and financial difficulties, didn't notice how she was drawn into a dangerous dependency. While she spent hours in a dazed stupor, Nathaniel was gaining more and more time alone with Zamora. Initially, his attention to the child could genuinely have seemed like an expression of care. But over time, his interest took on a sinister character. For Davis, the little girl increasingly became a living doll, obedient, beautiful, a helpless toy, with which he could do whatever he pleased. Brandon Foe, Zamora's biological father, began noticing troubling changes in early 2024. First, Zayla canceled one visit with their daughter, then another, constantly finding excuses. Unable to move freely on his own, Brandon waited patiently for Zayla to bring his daughter to him. Patricia Foe, the grandmother who had regularly cared for the little girl, was deeply concerned that Zayla had stopped bringing Zamora over. The woman sensed something was wrong, but couldn't get straight answers from Zayla. Nathaniel deliberately isolated Zamora from her father's relatives. He manipulated Zayla, instilling paranoid thoughts that Brandon wanted to take her daughter away, that his family was against her, that they would report her lifestyle to Child Protective Services. Frightened and increasingly dependent on Davis and the substances he provided, Zayla gradually cut off contact with her ex-partner's family. It's difficult to pinpoint exactly when the abuse of Zamora began. Investigators believe the first instances of mistreatment occurred around April-May 2024, when the girl was about a year and a half old. Zamora was a lively, active, and curious child. Her independent nature, so natural for toddlers her age, irritated Nathaniel, who preferred complete submission. When the girl first cried out loudly in pain from what he had done to her, he was afraid of waking Zayla and left the child alone. But this moment was just the beginning. The next time, Davis decided to give the little girl a small dose of a mind-altering substance to prevent her from feeling pain and drawing attention with her cries. Thus began a vicious cycle of abuse. Each time Zayla was unconscious under the influence of prohibited substances, Nathaniel would abuse little girl, finding new ways to cause her pain. And when the girl resisted or cried, it triggered outbursts of uncontrollable aggression in him. In the end of summer, an incident occurred that dramatically changed the situation. When Nathaniel tried once again to molest little Zamora, the girl, gathering all her strength, managed to break free from his grasp and run to another room. This display of independence and resistance threw Davis into a furious rage. That same evening, waiting until Zayla passed out from the effects of chemical substances, he twisted the little girl's legs with monstrous cruelty, breaking both her legs. After this horrific incident, Zamora's life turned into an unending nightmare of pain and suffering. The little girl, who had just started walking confidently and exploring the world, could now only lie helplessly, unable even to crawl away from her tormentor. By September 20th, 24, Zamora's condition had become so dire that hiding the signs of abuse was increasingly difficult. Neighbors began to notice that the previously active child no longer played outside. Some heard piercing child cries at night. Nathaniel, fearing someone might report them to Child Protective Services, decided they needed to move. He fabricated a story about how Zamora fell in the bathtub to explain any visible injuries if anyone asked. He instilled this same version in Zayla, who by that time spent most of her days in an altered state of consciousness and barely noticed what was happening to her child. On September 5th, 5 days before the tragic events, Zayla Goodwin, Nathaniel Davis, and little Zamora moved into a house on Torres Circle North in Jacksonville. They stayed with Madeline Pass, Zayla's 75-year-old grandmother, and her boyfriend Robert Owens. Madeline immediately noticed something was seriously wrong with the child. Despite being almost 22 months old, Zamora not only wasn't walking but wasn't even trying to stand up. Her body was covered with numerous bruises and signs of beatings. "I immediately asked what happened to the child," Madeline later told investigators. "Zayla told me that a few weeks ago, Zamora fell in the bathtub, and since then she's had trouble walking." The elderly woman also noticed that Zamora's lips were red and swollen. The girl hardly spoke and had difficulty eating. When she asked Zayla about this, she explained that Zamora was having an allergic reaction and that they had a pediatrician appointment scheduled for September 13th. What Madeline didn't know was how serious Zamora's real condition was. The swollen and burned lips were the result of forced consumption of prohibited stimulants that Nathaniel gave the girl to suppress her pain and resistance. Her legs were broken with such cruelty that even natural healing without medical help would have taken months, if not years. During the 5 days in the new house, Zamora's condition deteriorated rapidly. Madeline noticed the girl barely ate, slept excessively, and appeared lethargic, classic signs of a child under the influence of dangerous substances. Neighbors later reported hearing heartbreaking cries on the night of September 9th. One woman even went outside to locate the source, but the crying suddenly stopped. Investigators would later determine that on that night, Nathaniel struck little girl with such force that he caused a brain hemorrhage. Instead of calling for help, he gave the child another dose to calm her, then went to bed, leaving the dying girl alone on a mattress in the corner of the room. By morning, the hemorrhage had reached a critical stage, and the little girl's heart stopped. On September 10th, 2024, Zayla, awakened by the noise, ran from the bedroom to find her boyfriend attempting to resuscitate her motionless daughter. Davis claimed he'd found Zamora face down on her mattress, unresponsive. He carried her to the bathroom and tried reviving her by pouring water over her, a method illegal substances users employ to rouse someone who's overdosed. When this failed, he began CPR. Only then did Zayla call 911, but for little Zamora, it was already too late. When paramedics arrived, they found Zamora in critical condition, not breathing, without a pulse. Only after administering adrenaline did they restore a heartbeat. but she remained unconscious, dependent on a ventilator. Police officers who arrived with the ambulance immediately noticed the visible injuries covering the child's body, injuries that contradicted the accident story Zayla and Nathaniel were proposing. Zamora was rushed to Wolfson Children's Hospital as police began their investigation. What investigators discovered in the home shocked even veteran officers. In the room where Zamora lived, they found bloody bandages near her mattress, blood-soaked sheets, diapers with blood traces in the trash, illegal substances. This wasn't a home, it was a torture chamber for this child, one detective stated. A second search revealed even more evidence, including hidden phones with disturbing content. The hospital's medical report documented horrifying injuries, severe brain hemorrhage from blunt force trauma, a broken left arm, fractures to both legs in various stages of healing, bruises and abrasions covering her body, ligature marks on her neck from strangulation attempts, bleeding in her intimate areas. The child had been sexually abused in both natural and unnatural ways, chemical burns to her mouth and lips. Toxicology screening showed prohibited substances in her tiny body. The neurosurgeon informed police that the brain hemorrhage was too extensive for recovery. Even if she survived, she would remain in a vegetative state.
The amount of injuries and the level of abuse to cause those injuries, it just tears your heart in two.
Although parts of the arrest warrant are redacted, it states the toddler was also sexually abused. When detectives searched the home she was living in, they said they found multiple bloody bandages, bloody blankets next to Zamora's bed, and bloody diapers in the trash.
When police notified Brandon Foe of his daughter's condition, he was devastated. "I broke down completely. I didn't know how to function anymore," Brandon recalled about the moment officers told him about the sexual abuse and injuries his daughter had endured. Despite his disability, Brandon rushed to the hospital. Seeing his daughter's tiny body connected to life support, he made the decision to get a second tattoo, Zamora's name on his face, an eternal testament to his fight for justice. The day after Zamora's hospitalization, police arrested Zayla and Nathaniel. Both were charged with child neglect, with bail set at $500,000 each. For 9 days, Zamora remained on life support while doctors fought for her life. Every day, Brandon sat for hours by her bedside, holding her hand and talking softly. Just 2 years earlier, he had been the one fighting for his life after the devastating accident, with the love and support of his family giving him strength to persevere. Now that same strength allowed him to maintain his vigil despite his physical limitations, hoping against hope that his daughter might somehow find her way back to him. With each passing day, hope diminished as Emrys showed extensive brain damage. On September 18th, after consulting with specialists, Brandon made the most difficult decision of his life, removing his daughter from life support. Today she was unplugged. "She's gone. No air. Nothing," the grief-stricken father told local news. In her final hours, Zamora was surrounded by those who truly loved her, her family members who gathered around her, holding her hands and telling her how much she was loved. Even in his deepest grief, Brandon found strength to make a decision that saved other children. He consented to organ donation. Zamora's heart went to a 6-month-old girl with a congenital heart defect. Her liver saved a 6-month-old boy, and her kidneys helped another child. "I thought part of Zamora would live on in other children," Brandon explained. "Maybe some meaning can be found in this senseless tragedy." 3 days after her death, people gathered for a vigil in Stockton Park. They held blue balloons, the color of Zamora's eyes, and lit candles. Many brought teddy bears and toys, later donated to a shelter for abused children. On December 4, 2024, Zamora's death was officially ruled a homicide from blunt force trauma. By March 20, 25, a grand jury indicted both suspects with upgraded charges. Nathaniel Davis, now 23, faced first-degree murder, sexual battery, child abuse, and evidence tampering. Zayla Goodwin, 21, was charged with aggravated manslaughter. In April 2025, prosecutors announced they would seek the death penalty for Nathaniel Davis, a rare request reserved for the most heinous crimes. The murder of this innocent child was especially atrocious and cruel, and involved torture of the victim, the prosecution stated.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Michael Boston on behalf of Nathaniel Davis, making my initial appearance on his behalf.
All right, thank you. We are here for the first pretrial conference. He was arraigned at the last court date on April the 8th.
Okay. Judge, I've spoken to Ms. Schlacks, who'll be, I'll be requesting her appointment as second chair. She's willing to do so. I've also spoken to Investigator Ruda, as well as Brooke Butler for the mitigation specialist out of Sarasota, so we'll be getting you, hopefully, motions and orders will be filed within the next week or so, and we'll be waiting on JST response. And then we'll get you the appropriate orders. I don't think the state has any objection to those coming to you directly. I spoke to Mr. Gaynor briefly. We're going to get him a hard drive for the discovery, and then we'll come back, hopefully at our next court date, with a discovery, kind of a deposition schedule, for Your Honor,
Okay.
as we move forward.
All right, so how much time do y'all need for this next pretrial conference? That seems like a lot to do.
I would say about 30 days would be acceptable.
Okay. All right, then we'll pass this for 4 weeks until May 15 for the next pretrial conference.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As of May 20th, 25, the case remains in preliminary hearings, with the main trial not expected until 2026. Regardless of the outcome of the trial, Zamora's memory is alive in Jacksonville. On a simple gray headstone adorned with her photograph is an inscription: Zamora Lee Foe. Fly high, little angel. Fresh flowers and soft toys always surround her grave, evidence that the community hasn't forgotten the little girl, whose suffering sparked a wave of awareness and determination to fight child abuse. Rest in peace, little angel Zamora Lee Foe. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who watched this video all the way through. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case in the comments, and please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'd also like to send a special thank you to everyone who has donated to support my channel. Your support means the world to me and gives me the motivation to keep making new and interesting investigations for you, my wonderful viewers. Thank you all so much.